Her name is Ann Byrn, and you've probably seen her book in the bookstores or you've seen it on the bestseller list. Ann Byrn is the Cake Mix Doctor. It was a big, big seller this last year. And Ann, thanks for being with us again on WHO Radio.
Oh, it's great to be back.
How does a woman become a cake mix doctor?
I think I've said it before. You just get really, really busy, and you have about 3 children, and you've got two careers in the household, and anybody can do it.
That's right. Well, not just anybody, because this is quite a cookbook. I mean, for 450 pages, people would not believe how in the world could you get a 450-page cookbook out of cake mixes. But you have incredible recipes in here for things, not just cakes, but also bars and pies and apple crisps and fruit pizza and all sorts of things. So it must be more than just sitting around the house with kids trying to figure out a dessert, right?
Well, it is. And, I'm an old newspaper food editor, so I had a lot of information to pass along, a lot of tips on how to help people bake better. And I think that is good information regardless of whether you bake from scratch or if you use a mix.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the reputation, though, about cake mixes. To be blunt, people who consider themselves food connoisseurs look down upon cake mixes because they have a cake mix taste.
Right.
And do you find that to be true as well?
I think that, yes, it is true that they do look down on them. However, there are a lot of people who are crossing over. More people are trying them because cake mixes produce just a much more moist cake and a finer textured cake than you'll get if you bake from scratch. But it is true. There is a cake mix taste, and that is from the artificial vanilla that's what it's from, used in the process. And so a lot of the fun that I had in writing this book was coming up with flavors, bananas, cinnamon, extra cocoa, coffee, that you can add to your batter. You've got it in the kitchen, and you can take away the cake mix taste.
Right, just little ideas like add some pie filling or sour cream or cream cheese or fruit. I mean, there's all sorts of little things to add where it really changes the taste of that cake mix.
It makes it taste more from scratch, but you still have got all the benefits of the mix, which is ease and just the moistness. And, sometimes these cake mix cakes, I made a chocolate cream cheese pound cake 2 days ago, and it tastes better today than it did the first day.
Yeah. And, some of us love cake mix taste. I love yellow cake mix, and I shouldn't admit this because I know this is naughty, but I love raw yellow cake mix.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
well,
take a spoonful of that. It's delicious, but watch out for the eggs because I know that's dangerous.
Well, yeah, but everybody does it. It is dangerous, but everybody does it.
There's nothing like taking a nice whiff of that yellow cake mix. So maybe those of us that have grown up with it, we don't look down our noses on it at all, whereas maybe some of the older folks who didn't have it as much, maybe they notice the cake mix taste a little bit more than we do. That's the only thing I can think of.
I think that they might, although, my mother always baked from scratch. And then as she got busier and we got older, she said, hey, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
So she started using cake mixes, but she never used the canned frosting. She always made her frosting from scratch.
You can get her book in bookstores, and it's a big bestseller. And how many copies did you sell that? It was on the bestseller list for a long time.
It has done really, really well. I mean, I want to tell you that there are almost 700,000 in print.
Oh, my goodness.
So it's, it has been a phenomenal success, which has been a lot of fun.
And I'm sure you had no idea, right?
I knew it was a great book. I mean, I knew the information was really great, but I had no idea.
Yeah, it is a great book, and I don't get that excited about cookbooks, but this one is a fun cookbook. You made it fun because you include tips as well. Throughout the book, you have tips on things to add or how to adjust or how to use utensils. Some of those things are really important to those of us who use cake mixes because we're idiots when it comes to cooking.
Well, that's, you're probably not an idiot, but if you have always used a mix, you really haven't learned the proper way to put the ingredients together.
Yes.
And so I try to, share some of that information.
And what's the history of cake mixes? These are fairly recent creations.
Yeah, well, they're really post-World War II. They had been sort of experimented with before World War II, but when the war broke out, the cake mix companies kind of put that on hold. And then it was post-war where families were reuniting and a lot of women remained in the workforce, that the demographics of America changed. And there was a need for a convenience product such as this.
Now, what are the most popular flavors? I assume yellow is...
Yellow, and then chocolate, and then white.
So white's third.
Yes, and interestingly enough, those were the original cake mix flavors. So to me, it's so funny that we've come full circle. We started with these original flavors, and then we did all of this fancy pudding in it and streusseling it and bunting it and all that, and then we're coming all the way back, and what people really use are just the basic flavors.
You mentioned in the book a really interesting thing, that there is a reason why they make you add eggs to cake mixes. And that's because, because people wanted them, right?
Yes. Some of the original cake mixes were, the dried eggs were in the mix,
right,
and they were not as successful. And I think it was the Duncan Hines product. It was called the 3-Star Special, where you actually had to add eggs. And the mix took off like crazy.
So people prefer to add eggs to cake mixes.
Yes, it makes you feel as if you're baking from scratch. Crack
Isn't
the
that
egg.
funny? Well, people will really feel like they're baking from scratch when they use your cookbook, because the cake mix just becomes one of many interesting ingredients. One thing I like best is up front you have a whole bunch of nice color pictures of the cakes.
We do.
Oh, and it just really helps us see what they're supposed to look like. So.
Yeah, you can flip through them and get hungry.
Go to our WHO radio phone lines, and Sharon is up first with the Cake Mix Doctor. Hi, Sharon.
Good morning.
What do you
Good
use?
morning.
What do you use the cake mix for?
Well, my favorite recipe, since I don't cook much, but I used to cook more, but is, and I don't know all the details, but it had frozen strawberries in it, and then strawberries in the, and you're right, homemade frosting, but with this use frozen strawberries in it.
Was it a white cake mix? And then
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. And she's got this in the book. As a matter of fact, a picture of it's on the cover. The
No kidding.
strawberry cake.
I love that cake.
It's a
So
delicious
moist, isn't it?
Does yours have the strawberry gelatin in it?
Not that I remember. I just remember I got it from my mother, and I just remember the frozen strawberries. And I remember the first time I made it, all my strawberries sunk to the bottom, and then she told me how to do it the correct way.
Well, how do you do it? So
How do you do it? What'd
so
she
they don't
say?
sing.
Well, you have to. It's all about getting the strawberries coated in the batter instead of mixing it in afterwards.
Getting in the dry mix?
Yeah.
Interesting.
But they had it all on the bottom, and hers was always nicely, all through the cake.
Good advice. Well, Sharon, you hold on. We're going to give you one of the copies of the book, and you can get that recipe for strawberry cake with cream cheese frosting. And, Ann, I first had this about 25 years ago in Plant City, Florida, the strawberry capital of America.
Yeah.
A lady I worked with made this for me, where she put the strawberry Jell-O in the mix. Oh, man alive, is it good.
It is good.
Which does bring up a point about pudding. And I think we have a question here from one of our listeners, Diane. And, Diane, were you going to ask about a plain cake mix?
Yes, I am. I'm finding it increasingly hard to find a plain cake mix. They all come with the pudding in.
Right, and one of Ann's biggest points is you've got to usually use one without pudding. Isn't that right, Ann?
Well, I'm relaxing a bit on that because I understand the plight of everyone. It's so hard to find. But Duncan Hines is plain cake mix.
Okay.
All the Duncan Hines out there?
All Duncan Hines is plain cake mix.
So there's no pudding in the Duncan Hines
Exactly.
mix.
It may say moist deluxe and all of that on the package, but it's plain cake mix.
Oh, wonderful. I'm glad to know that.
And
Yeah.
Ann, why so much concern? Because you mentioned this in the book, that you should try to avoid the pudding mixes. Why?
I really didn't like them when I first started testing for this book because I found that they did not allow the cake to rise as high, and also when the cake cooled, if it had pudding in it, it sort of shrunk back from the pan, although it makes an incredibly moist cake. So in the second book that I've just finished working on, I've relaxed it a bit because I think there are times when you can use a pudding in the cake mix, and such as for like a sheet cake, like a 9 by 13 that you're going to frost anyway. It makes an incredibly moist cake. But I still like the plain mixes for the layer cakes because they just dome so pretty and they just bake bigger.
Yeah. Well, Diane, thanks so much for your call, and we'll get you a copy of the Cake Mix Doctor book. Ann Byrn is the Cake Mix Doctor. And Ann, you have a number of tips in the book. You said that you should preheat the oven for 10 to 15 minutes before you actually put the cake in the oven.
Right.
And I was a little surprised because usually we just wait for the little light to go off, and then as soon as it goes off, I stick it in.
Well, if your oven is calibrated and running just, tip-top shape, then go by the light on the oven. But I'll tell you, I find that more questions come to our website and to me that have to do with the oven. And the oven causes more problems because most times, most people's ovens don't bake true.
Right.
And I know this because I've had the appliance service people out here checking mine, and, they will they'll watch it cycle up and cycle back, and in 10 to 15 minutes, it should hit where you preheat that oven. But for example, one of my ovens once was taking 30 minutes to preheat.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
What? 30 minutes?
30 minutes. Yeah. Talk about an energy waster. But you just don't know. And so if your cakes are not, they're not baking, they're not done in the times that I recommend, I think your oven probably is baking too slow. If they're doming too much in the middle and getting too brown around the edges, then perhaps it's baking too hot.
You just floored me there. I'm just dumbfounded because I assume that when that little light goes off, that means it's ready.
Well, if your oven's working great, it is. But
you said check it out.
You better check it out. It depends on the age of the oven too.
Marty is up next on WHO. Hi, Marty.
Hi.
What cake mix do you use?
Well, I use several, but I remember a recipe for making poppy seed cake with yellow cake mix.
Mm-hmm.
And then also a German chocolate. You have to mix, but it's not German chocolate mix. I mean, you make the rest from scratch, but those recipes are hard to find.
And Anne, you have those types of things in the book, don't you?
I do. I have a couple poppy seed cakes in the book. We shared a wonderful poppy seed cake recipe. It's a pound cake from a lady in Houston, Texas. Just a beautiful, beautiful cake. And then I know in the book I've got coming out this fall, I've got a lot of German chocolate recipes. That I love German chocolate cake mix.
You do. You use the German chocolate cake mix that they sell in the store, and then what do you add to it to make it special?
I had buttermilk instead of water, and I also have taken a bar of German chocolate. I think it's like a 3 or 4 ounce bar that you get in the grocery store, and then I've chopped that up and put it in the food processor and grate it, and then I fold that extra grated German chocolate into the batter.
That is rich, though.
But it's good. You don't do this every day.
Oh, really? Well, it sounds like it's good enough to have it every day. Tell us about holiday ideas. Since this is a holiday weekend, we've got 4th of July then coming up later this year.
Mm-hmm. I like holiday cakes to be able to, I like to tote them. I like to be able to carry them places. So unless the gathering was going to be at my house, where I might do sort of a messy layer cake, I tend to bake a 9x13 cake you can carry in the car, or a pound cake, because it's nice and sturdy.
What's the kind of cake that your family always asks for, like when you have holiday gatherings?
We like the darn good chocolate cake.
What's special about that?
Its simplicity is what's special about it, and the fact that you can just pick up, it starts with a plain box of Devil's Food cake mix. Just a plain box of Devil's Food cake mix, and then we add the small package, the 3.9 ounce package of the chocolate instant pudding mix to it.
Oh, yeah.
And then we add 4 eggs, 1 cup of sour cream.
That's what does it.
Yeah, but you can use the reduced fat.
Okay.
It works just fine. A half a cup of water, a half a cup of oil, and then we fold in 1.5 cups of chocolate chips.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, we do.
That's so rich, my gosh.
Well, we like it rich down here.
No wonder they like it.
You're going to keel over in your chair. But I promise you, and this bakes at 350 for about 50 minutes.
That's wonderful. Great.
And
that
you
sounds
just dust
great.
it, but you don't put a frosting on it, of course. You just dust it with powdered sugar, and it makes such a beautiful, moist chocolate pound cake. And then if you eat it warm, the chocolate chips are nice and runny, and then if it sets up, it's just a beautiful cake.
You're making us hungry. Sharon is up next on WHO Radio. Hi, Sharon.
Hi.
What do you do? What do you do with a cake mix?
Well, I make something called gooey bars, and it just takes a yellow or a chocolate cake mix, a stick of margarine, and an egg, and you mix that together and pat that in a 9x13 pan. And then you take a large package, like 8-ounce cream cheese, and 1 pound box of powdered sugar and 2 eggs beaten, and then mix that together and pour that on top of the cake mixture, and bake it at 350 for 35 minutes. and then you sprinkle it with powdered sugar, and it makes a nice, almost like a brownie bar with a frosting already on it.
Oh.
Yeah, it's good.
Now, Ann has a couple of things with gooey in the title in the book.
Does she?
She has gooey all sorts of things. Tell her about it, Ann.
I do. I have tried those recipes, and I love those. And I think we may have talked about them last time I was on, but I think that I didn't know till I went to St. Louis that gooey butter cake originated in St. Louis.
Oh, so it's a Midwestern thing.
It is a Midwestern.
And where are you from, Ann?
I'm from Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay. And so you've got some additions to the gooey recipes. You've got coconut pecan. You've got lemon gooey bars. And
I kind of took that idea and ran with it.
Yeah. So, Sharon, you're going to enjoy this cookbook.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you, Sharon.
And thanks for listening to News Radio 1040 WHO. And let's get to Tish. Tish is with us. And what do you use a cake mix for, Tish?
An upside-down pineapple cake with cherries in the middle of the pineapple.
Cherries in the middle of each. So you use a pineapple and then stick a cherry in the middle of each one.
Yeah, right.
Do you have something like that in the book, Ann?
I actually have that in the next one.
Oh.
And I put a little white chocolate in the batter. You're going to keel over again.
White chocolate. Now, how does that affect the taste when you put white chocolate into a pineapple upside-down cake?
It's really good. It makes the cake batter a little, I want to say more like a pound cake. It makes it sturdier, although what Tish is saying is just perfect for cake mix. Do you serve it warm?
Not normally. Once in a while we serve it warm with a scoop of ice cream on top of it.
And do you use the pineapple rings or the crushed?
The rings.
The rings, and you stick the cherry in the ring.
In the ring. Oh, well, that's wonderful.
And I just can't picture white chocolate taste in that, though. I don't know why. But
it's pretty good.
I guess the yellow cake mix.
Yeah. Well, you have to give it a try, Tish. So we'll give you a copy of this book, the Cake Mix Doctor book, from Ann Byrn. The next one will be coming out in October. Judy is up next. Hi, Judy.
Hi.
What do you use cake mix for?
Well, we do a lot of camping, and we use a Dutch oven, and we use cake mix for making peach cobbler.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
That's really good. You put, I don't know if you've ever used a Dutch oven before, but after it's seasoned and everything, you can set it over coals, and they have little legs on them, and we boil the peaches in it with vanilla and some butter, and then after it's boiled for a while, then you just pour the dry cake mix on the top, and you put a cover on it, and then you put more coals over the top, and it bakes. That's really good.
Interesting.
It's a great idea.
Boy, that sounds really good.
If you have ice cream to go along with it, it's great, but a lot of times when you're camping, that's not available.
So you're out this weekend camping?
No, not this weekend. It's I don't go out when everybody else goes out. I go out on the other times.
That's smart. Good. Well, thanks, Judy. We appreciate you listening
That's a great
to WHO
idea.
Radio. And all of our books are given away, but we're still going to get a couple more callers in. Sue's up next on WHO. Hi, Sue.
Hi.
What do you use cake mix for?
Well, this is actual truth. The first time I ever did it was a couple weeks ago, and I used it for cookies, chocolate chip cookies.
Mm-hmm.
And I used just a plain vanilla or yellow cake mix, and put a couple eggs, a half a cup of oil, and like a third of the bag of chocolate chips in. Mixed it all up, put it on cookie sheets, and it was 8 to 10 minutes later, and they were the best cookies.
Oh, yum.
I had never used that before, and I thought that was really, really good.
Now, did you stick a little popsicle stick in them?
No, I didn't, but I had heard people had done that, and then even put like the little Snickers candy bars in them. We had some people that had done that before, and they were very, very good.
And what do you have for variations on
Great
that?
idea. You know, you can make wonderful cookies with cake mix. Really, you can. And I think that the key is to not over-bake them, to keep them sort of on the underside. I like the chocolate cookies. It sounds like a chocoholic today, but I know it. But I do like a similar recipe to what you're describing with the chocolate cake mix, and maybe some chopped pecans in there as well. There's also a kind of a crazy cookies that's been going around where you use Cool Whip and the cake mix. And if I had my computer turned on, I could
Cool Whip.
Yeah, and they sort of dome up into these they do this to these mounds. You actually roll them in powdered sugar first, and then they sort of bake up and puff. And we've done that with lemon cake mix and with
Interesting.
chocolate.
Wow. Thanks, Sue, for calling WHO Radio. And Marie is up next on Winzenburg on the Weekend. Hi, Marie.
Hello. My mother-in-law gave me this recipe. It's for almond brickle cookies, and it has a yellow cake mix and then almond brickle chips, and they always go over really well with groups of kids.
And you make that into cookies?
Yes.
Great idea.
And then she also has another recipe that's wonderful that we've done. It's a chocolate cake mix, and then you put cherry pie filling in it, and it pretty much makes bars.
You can do that in bars, or you can do that in layers.
Yeah, that's what we did. Remember, Ann, last year for my wife's birthday, I made her chocolate-covered cherry cake.
You did that cake.
I did it. I did it myself, and she still ate it.
But the cherry pie filling is the key on it.
Yep, that's what it is.
You don't need any oil in that cake, and it's so moist.
Yep. Thanks for calling, Marie.
Thank you.
And here's Maggie with us with Ann Byrn, the cake mix doctor. Hi, Maggie.
Hi.
Hi.
For kids, it's a lot of fun to take, usually chocolate works best, into a styrofoam cup, and you can just use a little bit at a time. Put water in till it's just a batter consistency, and do it in the microwave.
In the microwave?
Yeah. Then you can stir in some chocolate chips, or when it comes out, sprinkle a few chocolate chips on top, and it sells froth.
How long do you put it in the microwave?
Oh, about 30-second intervals, and turn it, and just till it gets rid of the moist look.
Yeah, you've got to watch it kind of carefully, don't you?
Right.
Are they sort of like those cake? Because I've got a recipe for birthday cake cones, where the cake sort of bakes up out of the cone.
It will if the cup is full enough, or it just depends on how full you.
That's a great idea.
It will bake over and run over if you get it too full.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that tip, Maggie.
Thank you.
Carolyn is up next on WHO. Hi, Carolyn.
Hi.
Hi.
I wondered what you had suggestions for sugar-free cakes and so forth.
Carolyn, have you been listening to this show? She seems to like sugar.
Yes, I have been.
It's hard. My father was a diabetic, and I totally understand. It's hard. There are some diabetic cake mixes out there. As far as using a plain cake mix, I think you just need to add no added sugar.
Ann Byrn, thank you so much for being with us.